Fast Love. That's the song that does it for me. Every single time. I hear a single bar from this George Michael number and I'm back home on a warm summer's day in July of 1996. It's a big day. It's Friday, the day I finished my A-level exams and the day England faced Germany in the semi-final of the European Football Championships. It's warm, although it's not uncomfortable, and as I park my red and rusty 1-litre Metro close to the examination hall, Fast Love is on the radio and is reaching the drum and bass line sequence before the song breaks into the Send Me Sweet Forget-Me-Not section. And I pause, catching myself in the rear view mirror and take a few moments to compose my thoughts, and in that moment, well, I kind of knew everything was going to be okay. It was a very fleeting moment, lasting no longer than a second, and yet as clear as day, Fast Love puts me right back in that car on that date every single time. As for my A-levels, yep, I got what I needed to make it into my first choice college, so that turned out just A-okay. As for the football, well, that went well for Germany, who won the game 6-5 after penalties. It's always penalties. Always penalties. These kind of memories, those stimulated by music, research suggests are more likely to take us back to our late teenage years and our 20s. Psychologists have called this the reminiscence bump, which may be linked to a time in our lives where we're usually able to take on a greater degree of independence, where everything is meaningful and new before our lives move into a period of stability, where perhaps many of the memories we acquire thereafter blur into a sea of sameness. Which, by way of that little introduction and scene setting, brings us to Across the Grooves, a visual interactive novel from the team at Nova Box, where this notion whereby music can transport us back in time is the crux, with a few twists here and there, of what so far in 2020 is one of the best, most captivating pieces of narrative-based video game of the year so far. You play as Alice. Now, I can't quite put a firm date on her age, although based on her circumstances and general hints from early in the game, she's perhaps in her late 20s or possibly early 30s. She's in a long-term relationship, works a stable if uneventful and possibly uninspiring job within a bank, and has a perfectly neat and proper apartment in the centre of Bordeaux, a port city in southwestern France. Alice seems to have settled for her lot in life, for better for worse, to the point where she's content to plod along as things are, even if she's perhaps not the happiest. This seems also to be true of the relationship with her partner Jean-Baptiste, and I'm wondering if this is a relationship based mostly on convenience rather than love. A section early on suggests as much, where she makes reference to her partner's desire to have the TV on in the background rather than music, with her mentioning she goes along with this with the record player naturally being set aside within the corner of their apartment. This stasis and her world around her changes following the appearance of a 7-inch single posted to her from the 10th arrondissement district of Paris. While the package comes with no clue or note from the sender, Alice recognises the handwriting of the address as belonging to Ulysse, a former partner of hers, and having listened to the record, a scene in which you're transported back within her past, she soon discovers her reality as she knows it is not the same as it was before she listened to the record. In a scene played out amongst a gorgeous background of a noisy brasserie, she discovers when making reference to Jean-Baptiste, her two friends have no recollection of their relationship, and neither does Jean-Baptiste himself, who she meets soon after, having hurriedly escaped the brasserie in the street outside. It's a touching initial movement which offers a view as to where Across the Grooves is ultimately headed, with Alice setting off on a journey of self-discovery across a number of European cities, determined not only to get her life back on track, while discovering the origins of the record, while also looking to track down the man that sent it to her. I've made no bones, as the saying goes, of the past 18 or so months in how I'm finding a particular joy and fondness within narrative-heavy games. And as I mentioned at the start of this piece, Across the Grooves handsomely delivers with only a few missteps along the way. More of that a little later. It's also one of those games whereby going too deeply into the journey Alice takes would open up some pretty large spoilers, so I'm treading here with considerable care. As have the designers, with Across the Groove using exquisitely hand-drawn stills that, aside from some Ken Burns panning and zooming effects, are still life and free from animation. From time to time, the character's facial expressions or skin tone changes to indicate shifting emotions, with the game being better for this minimal approach, which avoids distraction away from not only the overall story, but how each choice you make within the branching narrative alters and changes the personality and general outlook of the central character. You can get a sense of how your decisions are changing and shaping Alice by way of the 4 images you see at the top of the screen during sections of dialogue. Now, all this is loosely explained to you as you fire up the game by way of a short tutorial, although in reality players are left to understand how these icons are triggered and what they might mean via hands-on playtime. This feels a right decision in terms of the decision-making process. On this, well, it's up to you as you play and how you spend your days as Alice. You can be sassy, passive, aggressive, cheeky, flippant, and any number of other instantly recognizable human emotions. Anyone with a sense of empathy, or let's call it who knows how to read a room, will see in certain situations, while things do call for some restraint, although you don't necessarily have to pull on the verbal and attitudinal brakes as if it were. And having played this one 5 times over from start to finish before penning this review, doing so really does alter the story and in how your character looks considerably. As could be expected, Across the Grooves is an oral delight, not just in the tone and style of the soundtrack, which again shifts and changes depending on the route your character takes. In one playthrough, much of this audio was upbeat, almost pop radio friendly. In another, well, it was tinged with the fuzz of a saturated guitar, and in another playthrough, well, the music was in places particularly challenging. In parts, it was off-key, flat and pitchy, sometimes jarring the senses, bringing an almost grimace to the face whilst I navigated those particular sections. Now, the big elephant in the room, as it were, within this review comes by way of further discussions on the significance of the record and what part it plays as you make it through the game. Again, we're verging here on red alert spoiler material, so I'll tread carefully once more. You do listen to the record while out and about, and just like in the other sections of the game, you're able to make decisions within these visual sequences where you're listening to the record by way of which vocal path the songs take. In turn, this impacts where Alice is headed and the stories and lives of those around her. I'll leave it at that. From time to time, there are breaks in the flow of conversation that, to be really picky, are likely in part due to the localization of the English language version, taking the American word or phrasing for whatever it is that we hadn't been expecting. There are also occasions, and you can't miss them, where you're able to explore Alice's sexuality with both male and female interests. These moments are for the most part sensitively written with nuance and subtlety, although in one of the playthroughs I found Alice accept and instigating a one-night stand with a female character without drawing, aside from a superficial remark on flirting with girls back when she was at college, any more info or view into this aspect of her backstory, which feels an opportunity sadly missed. As I begin to close out this review, I want to make one other little observation. As a reformed music snob, and yes, I've worked within industry at various levels over the years, hey, I even used to run my own very small indie record label, I'm really happy to see Novabox having implemented a lexicon to bring together and give added context to some of the conversations you have while playing. It's here where you can read up on particular brands, concerts and such, and I think it's a great little touch for anyone who fancies on nerding out on such trivia. Anyway, in conclusion, and taking things back to the start of this review where I thought Alice had settled for the life she has rather than the life she wants, well, there's absolutely no way I'll end this piece by discussing the various endings and outpoints I came across during my time with this delightful game, although yes, in my experience, her journey here does evolve the person she becomes. There's certainly a before and after, and for me, I think things end up with Alice being all the happier for it. Across the Groove is out June 17th for PC by way of Steam and on the Nintendo Switch.